Welcome back, football fans. Today, we're diving deep into some breaking ESPN updates surrounding the NFL trade deadline, and of course, the Dallas Cowboys. There's growing buzz about what moves this team might be planning, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Some big names are being mentioned, and a few of them could be serious game changers if the Cowboys decide to pull the trigger. Before we go any further, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with your friends. And of course, hit that bell icon so you never miss an update on everything happening around the NFL and your Dallas Cowboys. Now, let's get into it. NFL insider Adam Schefter recently mentioned on his podcast that the Cowboys are actively exploring potential trades to strengthen their defense, just as Jerry Jones hinted they would. Schefter noted that while there's no guarantee Dallas can land a deal, they're expected to at least inquire about several defensive players before the trade deadline on Tuesday, November 4th. That's exactly what fans want to hear. These conversations, checking in with other teams, gauging prices, and exploring every possible option, that's the real job of a general manager. The front office should be doing everything in its power to make this team better, both in the short and long term. Meanwhile, Jeremy Fowler from ESPN added more fuel to the fire, saying the Cowboys are on the hunt for an impact defensive player and have reached out across the league to gauge availability. One of those names? Max Crosby. But sources believe the Raiders have no interest in moving him. Owner Mark Davis has too much respect and love for the guy. Still, that interest shows something important: the Cowboys are being aggressive, and they're keeping things quiet for once. Maybe, just maybe, this front office has finally learned how to play the trade game the smart way, by working behind the scenes and letting their actions speak louder than their words. Behind the scenes, the Cowboys are actually making those calls, quietly, but intentionally. That's exactly how they handled things when they landed Micah Parsons, and maybe, just maybe, they're finally learning to play this game the right way. Now, let's be real, Max Crosby getting traded isn't likely. As exciting as that idea sounds, it doesn't feel realistic. But if Dallas is legitimately exploring every opportunity, that's a major step forward for this front office. So here's a question for you: how confident are you in the Cowboys when it comes to making trades? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and rate it on a scale from 1 to 10. Are you optimistic that Jerry and Stephen Jones will finally pull off something big, or do you think it's just more talk than action? Alright, let's talk about the players ESPN recently linked to Dallas. Out of their top 25 trade candidates, they highlighted 6 names connected to the Cowboys, and let's just say, I don't agree with all of them. The first one? Mark Andrews, tight end of the Baltimore Ravens. Ranked high on ESPN's trade value list, but seriously, why would Dallas target him? He's not cheap, his production hasn't been elite this season, and he's not exactly known for his blocking. A move like that just doesn't make sense for the Cowboys roster or their offensive scheme. Another name mentioned was Alontae Taylor, cornerback for the New Orleans Saints. Now this one's interesting. According to insider reports, the Saints aren't actively shopping him, but they might listen if the offer is strong. Taylor's young, versatile, and can play both inside and outside. He's shown flashes as a slot blitzer and fits the kind of aggressive packages that Dan Quinn loves to draw up. The question is, what's the cost? If it's a late-round pick or a short-term rental, it might be worth the gamble. But if it's expensive, Dallas has to think long-term. After all, if they weren't willing to pay Jordan Lewis, would they really invest big in Taylor? Still, the interest makes sense. Taylor's got energy, talent, and upside, exactly what this defense needs as it pushes toward a playoff run. Next up on ESPN's trade radar for the Dallas Cowboys, linebacker Logan Wilson of the Cincinnati Bengals, ranked 11th overall on their list. And honestly, this one feels real. Wilson has quietly fallen out of favor in Cincinnati, seeing his snaps reduced and his role diminished on third downs. But make no mistake, this guy can still play. He's a former team captain, a tough, instinctive linebacker who reads plays well and holds his ground in the run game. He's not elite in coverage, but he's not a liability either. The situation is intriguing because it feels like both sides might be ready for a change. Wilson isn't as dominant as he once was, but he's still solid enough to make a real impact in Dallas. Plus, the contract details make sense. He's affordable this year, and the Cowboys would have flexibility with his deal next season, no long-term risk, no heavy cap hit. If the Bengals are truly open to moving him, this could be a smart, low-cost way for the Cowboys to add veteran depth and leadership to their linebacker core. He's the kind of player who could stabilize the middle of this defense, especially if the team doesn't want to rely solely on young guys like DeMarvion Overshown to carry that load. Of all the names floating around the rumor mill, Logan Wilson feels like one to watch closely. It's realistic, affordable, and fills a real need. Sometimes, the best trade deadline moves aren't flashy, they're the ones that quietly make your team tougher and smarter. And speaking of names to watch, another potential target is Ardan, ranked 13th on ESPN's list, and he brings a whole different kind of firepower to the table. As the ESPN trade list went deeper, things started to fall off a bit, but there were still a few names worth paying attention to. Let's start with Ardan. The guy is solid. You can count on him for around 6 sacks a season, just like he's done in Tennessee and Jacksonville. He brings energy and effort every snap. But here's the problem, he's not the guy. He's a strong rotational piece, a reliable number 3 edge rusher, not a game changer. Dallas doesn't need another role player on the edge. They need a dominant force, a double-digit sack threat who can take over games. And that's not who Ardan has ever been. So here's a question for you, which player would you trade for right now if you were in charge of the Cowboys front office? Drop your pick in the comments. Now, ESPN's list also included Arnold Ebiketie from the Atlanta Falcons, ranked at number 16. His production has been similar to Key's, steady but not spectacular. The Falcons have already invested heavily in young pass rushers like Jared Verse and Bralon Trice, so Ebiketie's role has shrunk. But for Dallas, the question is the same, is he actually an upgrade over Dante Fowler Jr.? If the answer's no, then it's not worth the move. Another interesting name on that list was Christian Harris, linebacker from the Houston Texans, ranked at number 24. Not long ago, Harris looked like one of the most promising young linebackers in the league. Back in 2023, he posted 7 tackles for loss and 7 pass breakups. But this season, he's barely seeing the field in Houston. If the Cowboys just want depth, Harris could fill a spot. He's athletic, young, and still developing. But if the goal is to find an impact starter, then he's probably not the answer. Maybe a late-round flyer? Sure. But he's also a pending free agent, which makes the value questionable. Those were the 6 players ESPN specifically linked to Dallas, but honestly, there are others who make even more sense. At the top of ESPN's overall list was Trey Hendrickson of the Cincinnati Bengals, and that's no surprise. The man is a pass-rushing machine. The problem? Cincinnati has no reason to move him. As ESPN's Jeremy Fowler noted, the Bengals aren't planning to trade their best defensive player, especially not after making win-now moves like adding Joe Flacco to stabilize the offense. And he's right. That's not a team that's selling, that's a team pushing for a playoff run. So while Hendrickson would be a dream addition, it's one dream that probably won't come true. After beating the Pittsburgh Steelers on Thursday Night Football, the Cincinnati Bengals proved they're still very much alive in the AFC North, which makes trading Trey Hendrickson even more unlikely. Now, let's shift gears and talk about a few other edge rushers and players who didn't get linked to the Cowboys, but maybe should have been. It's honestly surprising that Dallas wasn't listed as a potential fit for some of these names. Before we dive in, what do you think? Will the Cowboys actually pull off an impact trade before the deadline? Type Y for yes or N for no in the comments. Let's see where the fanbase stands on this one. Alright, let's look at the next few names ESPN ranked. Coming in at number 3 was Breece Hall, running back for the New York Jets. Now, in another situation, that could have been interesting, but with Javonte Williams playing solid football right now, it wouldn't make sense for Dallas to give up major draft assets for a backup or insurance piece. If injuries hit later, maybe that changes, but as of now, Hall just doesn't fit the Cowboys' immediate needs. Then there's Tariq Woolen, a cornerback who definitely sparks curiosity. The question is whether Dallas even needs a corner right now. Trayvon Diggs is set to return soon, Darren Bland is playing at a high level, and Jordan Lewis has provided reliable snaps in the slot. On top of that, the Cowboys recently activated Kalen Carson from the 53-man roster. Woolen's a rental, which makes it even less likely. At number 8, we have Jalen Phillips of the Miami Dolphins, and now this one is intriguing. The Dolphins didn't include Bradley Chubb in ESPN's trade list, but Phillips could realistically be moved. His pass rush metrics are solid, even if he's not dominant against the run. Before his injury, he was clearly trending upward. If he lands somewhere that lets him pin his ears back and attack, Phillips could easily rack up 5 or 6 sacks in just half a season. He's got that kind of raw power. Finally, at number 10, there's Jermaine Johnson from the New York Jets. This one might actually make the most sense for Dallas. He's a former first-round pick, the exact type of player this front office tends to target. Johnson has shown steady improvement each season, even with limited opportunities on a struggling Jets defense. His pressure numbers could be higher, but the talent is undeniable. If the Cowboys are serious about adding a young edge with upside, Jermaine Johnson could be the move that turns this defense from good to elite. Between Jalen Phillips and Jermaine Johnson, I've got to say, Johnson feels like the more intriguing option. He's under contract through next season, which gives Dallas both short-term help and long-term potential. He's young, powerful, and still developing, the kind of player who could thrive in Dan Quinn's system if given the right role. But I'm curious, who would you rather have, Jalen Phillips or Jermaine Johnson? Let me know in the comments right now. Drop JP if you're rolling with Phillips, or JJ if you think Johnson's the better fit for the Cowboys' future. Now, a couple of other names also appeared on ESPN's radar, though they fit more into the depth category than headline grabbers. One of them was Kingsley Enagbare from the Green Bay Packers. A talented young edge, but realistically, he's a third or fourth pass rusher on most teams, and that's exactly why he's not the kind of move Dallas needs right now. The Cowboys don't need another rotational edge, they need someone who can take over a game. Another name worth mentioning was Kyle Dugger, safety for the New England Patriots. Dugger's a physical, aggressive player with serious range, but the issue here is money. His contract is hefty, and any team trading for him would likely need New England to eat a portion of that deal. Still, talent-wise, he's one of the best safeties who might actually be available. Moves like these remind us how tight the margin is for real contenders. Dallas can't afford to add just for the sake of it. Every trade needs to make a statement, we're here to win now.